Hello everyone. This is the part 3 of module 3 of video lecture series of metal casting and welding. The presentation contains the details of non-ferrous foundry practices, especially with reference to aluminum castings. Non-ferrous foundry practice. As we already know that ferrous metal contains iron as a chief constituent element, while non-ferrous metals do not contain iron. Generally, ferrous metals are preferred owing to their high strength and durability, while non-ferrous metals are preferred due to their lightweight and corrosion resistance. Although the technique of casting remains the same for both types of metals, the foundry practice varies to a larger extent, and hence there is a need to study the various aspects related to the non-ferrous foundry practice. The most widely used non-ferrous metal in casting technology is aluminum alloy. Henceforth, all the non-ferrous metals referred will be with respect to aluminum alloys. Now let's discuss about the advantages and limitations of non-ferrous metals. Here with an example of aluminum alloys. The aluminum alloy castings exhibit high strength to weight ratio. Aluminum casting alloys display excellent fluidity characteristics for casting thin sections and fine details. These alloys melt at relatively low temperatures, thereby reducing the problem related to melting, pouring, and essential furnace requirements. Aluminum castings can be produced almost by every known process, thereby offering a broad range of volume, productivity, quality, mechanization, and specialized capability. Aluminum castings require low capital requirements, and it has got a very wide applications as well, ranging from cooking utensils, food handling and medical equipments, aerospace industries, and automotive industries, etc. Now, coming to the limitations, these castings are more expensive than ferrous based casting, as the non ferrous element or the metal itself is costlier. Also, aluminum casting exhibits poor resistance to abrasion and wear, and the variation in alloying elements affect the properties to the greater extent. Now, how do they melt the aluminum alloys? Aluminum alloys can be melted in direct or indirect fuel fired furnace or electrically heated furnace like crucible furnace, induction furnace, etc. The present slide shows you the details of lift out type of crucible furnace. The lift out type of crucible furnace is one of the oldest and simplest type of furnace used for melting aluminum alloys and also other non-ferrous alloys in small volume, of course. The furnace in its simplest form is as shown in figure 3.14. Consists of a crucible made from a refractory material using a clay graphite mixture or a high temperature steel alloy. The crucible itself acts as a ladle. The charge placed inside the crucible is heated through the walls of the crucible by means of heat source like oil, gas, or electricity. After the melt has reached the desired state, the crucible is lifted out of the furnace with tongs and the molten metal is directly poured into the mold. This is how the melting of aluminum alloys is done. Hardeners used in aluminum castings. The mechanical and physical properties of aluminum castings are enhanced with the use of alloying elements. However, Aluminium is a low melting point metal of about 660 degrees centigrade, and most of the alloying elements having favorable properties have comparatively greater melting points. In such cases, the alloying elements do not mix readily with the low melting point aluminium metal, and hence master alloys or hardeners have to be used. Hardeners are available in a number of alloys including calcium, cobalt, copper, chromium, manganese, magnesium, nickel, silicon, titanium, vanadium, and zirconium. For example, chromium has a melting point of about 1875 degrees centigrade. Is used as a hardener with aluminium melt in order to impart strength, hardness, and oxidation resistance. The aluminium chromium alloy combination is called as master alloy and the chromium as hardener. Initially, chromium is allowed to reach the molten state, and in this condition, solid aluminium is added and is quickly dissolved in the liquid chromium. Aluminum based master alloys which contain the hardener element in high concentrations provide a convenient and economical way to add them to the molten aluminium to achieve the desired final properties. These master alloys readily go into solution at a lower liquid aluminum temperatures, thus minimizing the dross formation and solubility of hydrogen. The amount of aluminum and hardeners used is calculated during the course of melting so as to bring the final aluminum casting to the desired specification. So, now what is drossing? Generally, dross is a mass of solid impurities floating on the surface of the low melting point metals such as aluminum, tin, lead, zinc, etc. as a result of oxidation of molten metal. With reference to the aluminum castings, the term drossing is specially used to denote the formation of aluminum oxide and other oxides that collect on the surface of the molten aluminum metal when it comes in contact with air. Dross can be minimized when melting is made faster or protecting the molten metal coming in contact with the products of combustion or atmospheric air. However, even with its formation, the dross product need not be considered as a waste material. Instead, it can be recycled either mechanically or chemically and again reused. Gas absorption in aluminum castings. Hydrogen is the only gas that is appreciably soluble in aluminum and its alloys. Its solubility varies directly with the temperature and the square root of pressure. During the cooling and solidification of molten aluminum, dissolved hydrogen in excess of the extremely low solid solubility may precipitate in molecular form, resulting in the formation of primary or secondary voids like pinholes or gas porosity. Fluxing and flushing of aluminum melts are practiced mainly to separate the molten aluminum metal from the aluminum oxide dross layer and to remove the dissolved hydrogen and entrapped dross from the melt. As we have already discussed regarding the flushing and fluxing, the same methods holds good in non-ferrous metals also. The properties of the end product after casting plays a major role in its application. So, with this respect, the grain refinement of the casting becomes very important. So, here grain refinement in aluminum alloys. Generally, the grain size in an aluminum alloy refers to the size of the individual aluminum crystals in the solidified part. The size of these crystals are directly related to the number of grains or the nuclei formed during the initial stages of solidification or during the pouring of metal. The more number of grains, the finer the grain size will be, thereon having the ability to promote improved casting soundness by minimizing shrinkage, hot cracking, and hydrogen porosity. Also, the mechanical properties are greatly enhanced with fine grain structure. Grain size in aluminum alloys can be refined by three methods. The first one is thermal method, second one is chemical method, and third one is mechanical method. In thermal method, it involves rapid cooling or what we can call it as chilling of liquid metal and subsequently variation of process variables. A fine equiax grain structure arises when the casting is carried out in cold molds and under low superheating conditions. Coming to the chemical method, it involves the addition of some elements called as grain refiners that promote nucleation and hinders crystal growth. Inoculation is a typical example of this method and is most common practice. The third one is mechanical method. Mechanical refining involves stirring or agitation of the melt during solidification by using ultrasonic, electromagnetic, and mechanical stirring methods. Since most of the techniques require long processing time and special devices, this method is usually applied to semi-solid metal processing. Coming to the pouring temperature. Pouring temperature refers to the temperature of the molten metal before it is poured into the mold. The pouring temperature has to be higher than the solidification temperature of the metal in order to allow the free flow of molten metal into all the regions of the mold cavity well before solidification is completed. However, it must be noted that the temperature difference must not be too high as heat from the mold cavity has to be quickly removed in order to speed up the solidification process. The difference between the solidification temperature and pouring temperature of the metal is designated by the term superheat, which is more important parameter to be considered in melting and pouring operations. Now let's discuss about the advantages and limitations of non-ferrous metals. Here with an example of aluminum alloys. The aluminum alloy castings exhibit high strength to weight ratio. Aluminum casting alloys display excellent fluidity characteristics for casting thin sections and fine details. These alloys melt at relatively low temperatures, thereby reducing the problem related to melting, pouring, and essential furnace requirements. Aluminum castings can be produced almost by every known process, thereby offering a broad range of volume, productivity, quality, mechanization, and specialized capability. Aluminum castings require low capital requirements and it has got a very wide applications as well, ranging from cooking utensils, food handling and medical equipments, aerospace industries, and automotive industries, etc. Now, coming to the limitations, these castings are more expensive than ferrous based casting, as the non ferrous element or the metal itself is costlier. Also, aluminum casting exhibits poor resistance to abrasion and wear, and the variation in alloying elements affect the properties to the greater extent. I hope all of you have understood the contents of the presentation. If you have any queries, you can shoot a mail to hsrbcet@gmail.com. Thank you for your patience listening.